Welcome back to another episode of the RAG Report, your daily bulletin podcast where I'm interviewing and speaking to recruitment owners, leaders, suppliers, and advisors across the global recruitment industry to advise and support recruitment owners everywhere on the best tactics and techniques we can all adopt to fight and thrive through COVID-19's pandemic. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Alex Elliott, the founder of Rise Recruitment Ventures, a venture capital organization that specifically help recruitment agencies, and they look to build world-class recruitment agencies inside 7 years. I've already had Alex and Johnny's co-founder on the original RAG podcast, episode 1 of season 2, which went down a storm. They're in the top 5 most listened to episodes ever, and I think we had quite a lot of fun. But Alex is someone who right now has been he's been advising me, he's been helping me out with what I'm doing at Hoxo. He's definitely the sort of guy that people are picking up the phone to, and I think he's going to have some words of wisdom for us all. So, Alex, thanks so much for taking the time.
Sure, thank you. It's good to be talking again.
Yeah, always. So, look, tough times, very, very tough times for everyone in the industry right now. What I like to start this conversation with is just getting a open question, like what the hell is going on for you right now?
Well, it's bedlam out there at this moment in time, to be frank. So I've spent quite a bit of time the last couple of weeks speaking to business owners and talking through what their plan is, effectively kind of being a bit of a sounding board, I guess, with regards to some of the planning moving forward. It's a difficult time to be talking to individuals, but it's really important as an industry that we all effectively try and rally around as much as we can through what's been a pretty seismic shift in the market in such a short space of time. So yeah, a huge amount of my time has been speaking to business owners and trying to support them through what can only be described as a pretty challenging period.
When you're in the last few months, when you've been dealing with your investments and your clients, when did it really start to come to light that this was going to be a big factor? Because I remember I was taking the piss out of Liverpool probably not going to win the league due to this. Like that was like the joke that was going on in the office. But I also said, if this actually is true, we're all fucked. But I just thought, it'd be fine. But when do you remember when you realized, shit, this is super serious, and you started talking at length with people?
Probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. So look, the reality is, I think the first case in China was towards the end of December. So we've gone from the first notice of this worldwide being at the end of December to now where we're at in the middle of March. So the last 3 or 4 weeks have been brutal, and it kind of has come out of nowhere in the sense that I don't think anyone quite foresaw or could foresee the challenges that were going to be coming. So not only has it come out of nowhere, but the immediacy of how it's changed the market is pretty startling. So yeah, people can compare it to 2008, 2009, but on a personal level, on a business level, there was some foresight there. You could actually see what was coming to a degree compared to now. There certainly wasn't the swiftness of what's happened, and I think there was more of an opportunity to plan for it. So yeah, I think this has caught a lot of people on the hop, understandably so.
So you started your original business, Liquid Personnel, back in 2006, and we've talked about the story, but 2008, can you remember what life was like for you back then?
I think the market hit us slightly later because we were predominantly public sector orientated. So it hit us slightly later than it did maybe the private sector, but effectively our jobs dropped by 50% overnight. So there's definite similarities to some of the sectors. Look, the reality is I'm talking to a wide variety of business owners from a wide variety of different sectors, and some of them, they've lost everything overnight. So some sectors have been impacted a lot worse than that. Some sectors aren't doing nearly as bad as that. But for us, it was about 50%. We had a reasonably strong sales floor. So let's say we had 30 or 40 in the business as a whole, and we were doing well. What we did was double down. And we were in a fortunate position that we were 95% plus contract. Those contracts stayed in place. So again, there's a slight difference with some organisations now where a lot of contracts have been cut.
If you had key workers out now, you'd be in a strong position. If you had
you would. But look, we doubled down, and it was definitely a driver to our ongoing success, Sean. So we doubled down on our training and development. We actually continued hiring, and we actually upped our hiring because we saw it as a great opportunity to actually go after really, really quality individuals in the market when there was less competition. So we continued hiring, we doubled down on training and development, and we doubled down on marketing as well. So we wanted to really position ourselves for the second bounce of the ball when that happened. But we were in a cash position to do so. So we were a strong business. We were financially well supported from the cash we were generating. So there are differences in that scenario. But I think for some organisations, this is an amazing opportunity to position yourself for coming out the other end. The challenge is, when's that going to be? And I think everyone's got their own opinion on that. And I do think that's very sector and market specific. So I don't think there is a one size fits all answer to that question. But look, we've got choppy waters ahead. But for some companies out there, from a brand positioning perspective and from the quality of the consultants coming onto the market, I've spoken to lots of consultants as well, by the way, who've lost their jobs, and I feel their pain. The other side of that, from a client perspective, if you are in a position where you can start speaking to people now, I don't think there's ever been a better time to start building your future sales force. So there's some real opportunity out there in the marketplace, not for all sectors, that's certainly the case. But yeah, we doubled down in, it's probably about 2009, 2010 for us. And we came out really, really strong.
How long did it affect? I mean, I wasn't around in the space then. How long did it affect businesses forward? Can you remember?
Again, I think it's so market dependent that. So it stayed with us, the impact, for the rest of our business career, because actually what happened was the margins were driven down. Yeah. And as you know, sometimes it's very hard to get your margin up once it's been driven down to a certain level. So look, the reality was there was probably an ongoing impact for the rest of our time in that business. But volume picked up reasonably quickly. The economy turns, the economy will turn again. So the key is to come out that other side and make sure you can ride the wave.
So you're talking to business owners. What advice are you offering right now?
Again, very, very business dependent. I think there's a lot of generic advice out there, which is really, really good. But I think it very much depends upon the business. I think, one thing that frustrates me at this moment in time is that I think everyone's being grouped together. And there's quite a vocal minority, for instance, on LinkedIn, who are, it's not like me at all, but I've almost been tempted to message them back, because effectively the narrative they're describing is that at this moment in time, as a business owner, if you were letting staff go, you are either incompetent, negligent, or evil, basically. And it's just such a ridiculous message to be putting out there. There are so many companies out there at this moment in time who are having to look at the brutal facts of the new reality, and they are having to make changes in their business so that they can survive through this very challenging phase. So first and foremost, what is your cash position? What does your pipeline look like? What is the expected impact upon your sales forecasts moving forward for the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months? There's an element of guesswork there, but you've got to start making some assumptions with regards to what your business is like from a cash perspective. And you have to restructure your business according to that. So this thing about, if you don't have 6 months worth of cash flow in your business ready and waiting for this situation as it unfolds, if you don't do that, you're negligent. It's just absurd. Absolutely ridiculous position to be in. I had a conversation with our FD, and I sort of jokingly said to her, how many times when we were scaling the business did we have anything like 3 to 6 months worth of cash flow waiting and ready to go at any one time for a situation like this? She laughed at me. So there's a good example of a business. We grew that to 140 heads in 10 years. That was a fast growth business, and managing your cash flow is incredibly important. But just because something like this hits and it's a seismic shift in the industry, I feel really passionate about sort of speaking up on behalf of business owners and saying, hang on a minute, this is a huge change and people have to make drastic changes. So I'm rambling, but my answer to your question is it's market dependent, it's business dependent. And most businesses at this moment in time, based upon the new reality, are having to seriously cut hard and deep. Yeah. Because it's the only way they're going to get through it. Yeah. And yeah, you have to focus on the bounce back. Of course you do. But if you are, when that is. Of course you don't.
Look, you were one of the first to comment Saturday morning. I think it was 7 o'clock. I went for a walk, and I was just fucking sick of seeing this knee-jerk reaction post that I kept. And I get it. It's so sad that so many people are let go. Like I empathise with every one of them. I had to let my sales guy go yesterday. Like that was so difficult because he's a great lad, and a week ago we weren't planning that, right? So I can empathise with them, but at the same time, the people that are typically saying it are all in like one-man bands where they haven't got any.
Couldn't agree more.
Like fucking, at least if you've got 100 people and you're shouting it out, you've got some credibility to say it. But when you've got, and even if you have got a cash reserve, does that mean if you had a crystal ball to say, well, it's a 6-month downturn, then you can make another decision. But when you don't know how long you've got, and it could be 12, 18 months, every fucking penny is going to count, isn't it? So it's like, to me, I don't think people have got much choice right now. And it's just such a difficult situation.
You have no choice. And the reality is, I think there's this thing about the morality of the decisions that are being made, and it's just absolute nonsense. You have a moral, ethical responsibility to keep your business alive, because when the market turns, you're going to be the people that are employing those staff. You're going to be the people that are going to be able to offer opportunities to people when the market turns again. If you have this mentality that you're the captain, you have to go down with your ship, well, you know what? You're not doing anyone any favors. You have to make decisions now as a leader, which are compassionately pragmatic. And some of those decisions are going to give you sleepless nights, and some of those decisions are going to leave you feeling uncomfortable. But the reality is, it's what you have to do as a business owner. And I think some of the virtue signalling that's been going on out there in the market, I've got to say, actually, the last few days, it seems to have quietened down a little bit. And I think that's because I think the reality of actually what's going on is hitting home with these people now. That, look, I'm not saying not everyone hasn't made knee-jerk reactions. I think it's very business dependent. But I think 99.9% of the business owners I've spoken to, they are completely and utterly understanding of the decisions they're making, and they're not decisions they're making lightly, but they're decisions they're making because they have to, based upon the new reality, and they haven't got a choice. And as I say, they need to be there. We need that infrastructure when things turn again. So we need as many businesses as we can to get through this. And unfortunately, that means some pretty tough decisions are being made, but they're certainly not being made flippantly, as suggested somewhere.
If I'm listening, I'm a recruitment owner of, say, I don't know, I've got 25 people. What do I do to make that decision? Like if I might not have an advisor, I might be a sole owner with outsourced finance and a load of people that I care about. How the fuck do I make the decision? What do I start with?
What's your cash position? So what's your cash position now, and what's your cash position going to be in 6 months' time based upon your revised sales forecasts? So once you understand that is your base point to make decisions. And the reality is, if you've just lost 90% of your business, so you're going to do 10% of the revenue that you were expecting for the next 6 months, and you've got a cash position of X, well, all of a sudden you start to understand what your company needs to look like to get through this period of time. So that's your starting point. Where's your cash at? Simple as that. Focusing on your cash.
Once you've got to make cuts, how do you decide who?
How do you decide who? So, look, first and foremost, structurally, I think you focus your cuts where they're not going to be cash generative. So first and foremost, you need people ideally who are going to be bringing money into the business. That is the sad reality of the situation. So some of those people who aren't cash generative, they're probably going to be the first to go. After that, you're looking at those people that are, I think a colleague of mine described it as a Swiss Army knife. And I thought that was quite a good description. You need those all-rounders you need your A players. Who are those people that can really sort of support the business moving through an extremely difficult time? And look, if you're really scaling down, you're going back to that point where you need lots of people who can wear different hats. So I'm not giving a particularly clear answer here because, again, it's so business specific. But who are those individuals that can continue bringing money into the business, who are going to support the cash position? And who are those individuals that you need in place when the bounce comes back? But there is no easy way to say, is it John or is it Sarah? It's a case of sitting down and talking through the reality of what the business needs to survive through this period. And write your plan down, write it down, and decide upon how you're going to execute that effectively. That might be a case of going hard and deep because you know the situation isn't going to change for the foreseeable future based upon your market. It might be a case of being a little bit more flexible because actually your market hasn't been as impacted as badly at this point. Therefore, you can afford to do a more staggered approach based upon how the market continues to trend in your space. But I think first and foremost, have a plan. And then once you've got the plan, I think, unfortunately, the personnel piece comes secondary to that.
Yeah. What other moves can people do? Is there anything else that, yesterday I had an episode with Andrew McCaskill, and he talked about, pivoting your product, maybe thinking about alternative services, thinking about different ways to generate cash. Have you heard of any of these things before, or come across anything where people have had to think outside the box above and beyond staff costs?
I have, and it's look, to be blunt, again, it's very business specific, but it's still something I think each business is grappling with because there are a lot of businesses out there looking to do the same thing. This isn't about profit moving forward. This is about survival over this period. For a lot of companies, it's not about profit, it's about survival. So yeah, if there are things that you can offer to your clients from a strategic perspective based upon where they're at as an organization, 100% you should be looking to do that.
Can you charge? That's the question.
I think the question is, does it make a difference? And if it does, then yeah, you should charge for it. If you're just charging for the sake of charging, because I don't think there is a one size fits all to that. I think you've got to look at your market and you've got to understand what the client's prepared to pay, because it's got to offer genuine value. You can't just go out to the market and start trying to sell anything on a strategic perspective. It's difficult.
You've got to know. You've got to know and you've got to be at the top table of those conversations with clients to really understand where their pain is. Otherwise, it's too difficult. What do you see the recruitment market's going to look like in 3 months? Like, what's your honest interpretation of where it'll all be?
There's going to be companies that go, and there's going to be companies that make it through this period. That's the short and simple answer to that. I listened to one of your podcasts with what's his name, Greg Savage, and I loved his directness, and I thought that was quite I really enjoyed it because I thought it was quite different to some of the more diplomatic answers you'd received. I loved the fact that he talked about percentages, and it kind of hit home, I think, the reality of the situation of what happened in his part of the world as part of the last recession. There's going to be a proportion of businesses that don't make it through this period. And again, that goes back to my point that I think some businesses have to make tough and hard decisions now to ensure that they are one of those companies that make it through this period. And that doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean you're not a decent human being. It means that you've got to keep your business alive. So again, I'm rambling, but there's going to be a number of companies, a decent proportion of companies won't make it through this period unless they've got a plan which they can follow through with.
I think I completely agree. One thing we've been looking at today as a business to support our clients and ourselves is the whole furlough option that the government, the retention scheme. And on the first call, it just sounds amazing, right? It sounds like 80% of salaries paid. You don't even have, there's no obligation to pay the top up of the 20%. So it's effectively a free workforce. But that's not quite the case, because what our FD has shown us today is take someone's salary, then you add on the tax, the NI and pension scheme, and then they'll calculate the gross amount, and then they'll calculate the 80% they're going to pay. And often, and even at your 30 between 30 and 40k salaries, that's going to be at or above the $2,500 cap. So if you've got senior people in your business, then as soon as even if you let them go, you're not allowed them to work. You've got to send them home, and you're still going to have to pay something above the provision that the government are offering, because it's just not enough, which is going to be difficult. And also, there's still no clear line on the obligation as to whether you have to hire that person back. Like, because what happens if you let 20 people furlough, and then in 3 months you haven't got the revenue to bring them back, and then you've potentially got, all right, you give them all notice, but you still have to pay them notice period. So you might have this massive 1 month wage bill in 4 months that you can't afford. Have you been asked that question and looked into whether
Yeah,
it's
sure.
a viable option?
As you're saying, the devil's in the detail. So we're waiting on that, aren't we? And again, I think this is a key point, that the environment and the variables are changing so dramatically and so quickly that I think your planning has to be a really fluid process at this moment in time. The devil is in the detail with regards to what restrictions are going to be put in place for you to be able to put someone on furlough and effectively claim it. The challenge is cash flow again. So if you can't claim that money back for 3 months, what does that mean to your cash position? And what's the market going to look like when you come out the other end? So it might be extended for another 3 months, great, but still that's 6 months further down the line. At this moment in time, you're having to make some assumptions with regards to what the market's going to look like in 6 months' time. Is it a good thing to offer to the market? 100%. But I think how good depends greatly on the individual market and the individual business, and also what the detail comes out. You could end up just building up a huge cash liability, which you're not going to be able to pay if the market isn't there for you when you come out the other end.
Well, I think monthly you'll have to pay the salaries, and then you'll get reimbursed.
Yep. That's what it looks like.
I mean, it has to come back pretty quick. It can't. They've got to be like, within the same month, within the following month. It can't. You couldn't wait 3 months for that to come back. I mean, businesses won't survive. And if I don't know, they might, but let's hope there's a bit more clarity on that moving forward, because they're building out like the website, the pages, the scheme, everything's they've released a product on Friday that they've not actually built, and they've not got the infrastructure to execute yet. So it's.
I think there's going to be more detail provided today or tomorrow on that. I heard somewhere. So I like everyone with bated breath, kind of waiting on that before I can really, suggest a proper use of that model.
So looking at you and your business now, obviously we've been working together. We've been doing some work with you, and the proposition is set. You've had lots of engagement, you're looking at people that are either starting recruitment businesses or in the early stages that, whatever reason, are not scaling at the pace. And are you still going to be looking at people over this period? Is it something you're actively going to try and help people get out of that situation through investment, or what?
The investment piece is very difficult at this moment in time. I don't think you can never say never, but the reality is, investment is risk and reward are symmetrical, right? So the challenge in this space is there's so much uncertainty. So with that level of uncertainty, there's a huge amount of risk. And John and I are both strong believers in win-win situations. It's very, very, very difficult to invest in an environment like this where both parties are going to come out with it win-win. So I think the best use of our time at this moment in time is supporting people, especially those business owners who are going through this day to day, is supporting them to make sure their planning is as optimized as possible, and then like emotionally supporting them as well, because that's the other big piece, right? So it's all well and good having a plan, but actually I think it's about leadership at this moment in time, and trying to give back a little bit to those people that we have been speaking to, and help them through a process emotionally, which, look, people expect some business. This is why I feel so strongly about defending business owners at this moment in time and the terrible decisions they're having to make. Some of them are staring into the abyss right now. And that's not me being over dramatic. It's just the fact is some markets are not going to see any cash for 6 to 9 months. Businesses like that are going through an extremely tough time. So 100% our role is to support those guys, build a really strong plan as to how they're going to get through this period, but also be there, I think, a little bit as a support network, and just sort of help them through it emotionally. So
it's more about being there for people now, and then when the market's turning and there's a bit more stability, then the investment strategies will pick back up.
And look, I mean this, and we've been quite vocal online. Anyone who wants to get in contact with myself or John, just drop us a message. We'll get something in the diary and we'll have a conversation. So anything that we can do, we want to give back as much as we can. So anything that we can do to support any founders, 100% we're here for a phone call. So yeah, we're really happy to help in any way we can.
Well, I hope people take you up on that, mate. I think listeners to this show typically reach out and do engage with people that are speaking. So I'm hoping that they do. What's life like for you? Because are you still in? Is it Rutland you live?
I am. Yeah. So
you're already quite in quite an isolated place, right? You're not in.
Yeah, I am. So it's not hugely different for me, but normally I get to escape and go to the city on a regular basis. So, look, life's fine for me. I'm very fortunate considering everything that's going on and some of the conversations I'm having on a daily basis. At this moment in time, I really appreciate my position. So I'm all right.
But your all family are good. Everyone's okay.
My parents live 45 minutes away. They're fine, as is my sister and her family. So again, I'm extremely fortunate to be in a situation where everyone's fit and healthy. And
it is crazy though, the whole the Zoom revolution that we're on, whether it's Google Hangout, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, whatever people are using. In a way, it's bringing us closer together because I'm seeing. Hoxo was already like 90% sales conversation via Zoom and client interaction. But like tonight, I've got a family Zoom with my mum and brothers are in Manchester, and I've never done that before. We had a virtual beers night on Friday with my mates, and it was. Do you know what? I had about six Guinness, and it was hilarious. Like it was genuinely hilarious. We all woke up with headaches on Saturday, which is might be why I put that post up first thing Saturday morning. I don't know. But in a weird way, like some of your mates who live miles away and are not in the same city, like this is forcing us to act slightly differently and engage with technology that we wouldn't really consider. I'm interested to know like what life will be like after this, whether people will go back to exactly how they were, or whether a lot of businesses and organizations and people will start to change. What do you think? Do you think recruiters will get used to working remotely and it'll be more of a distributed model, or do you think it's just going to go straight back?
I think it will be a mix of the two. So yeah, 100%. A lot of business owners and a lot of individuals are going to get used to working from remotely. But I think probably the majority are going to go back to how it was. But I think this isn't something that's going to go away, is it? The world is moving in this direction. So maybe it's just going to speed up that process a little bit.
Well, yeah, I think if you look at I reckon most business owners out there now are looking at their balance sheet and they're thinking, wish that fucking office wasn't there. Because we've spoke to our office today and they're like, we've got a commercial loan, so we can't, no one's giving us any relief on the other side. They've got like 450 tenants all saying the same thing. So they're, WeWork, Workspace, Office Group, Regis, they're all in a really tough position now.
Yep.
But regardless of that, like so many businesses are going, well, that is such a drain. Like if you've got a central London location office, like 15 to 20,000 pounds a month at the moment, you're burning it without, you can't use it. And you're in a contract. And how many of these companies are going to go 20 grand a month? That's big. That's a massive. That's
it is. And I get that.
We might be 6 months like this, so you might all get so used to it. Do you know what I mean?
I think there has to be more flexibility moving forward. But look, there's also nothing like the buzz of walking onto a sales floor with 100 plus salespeople doing their job well, because you just feel that buzz and that electricity, and that kind of does it for me. So. I personally, I'd be a bit disappointed if the entire world went working from home, because I'd get to lose that excitement that you get when you get to that point as an organisation. You don't even have to be that big, do you? You go into the right sales business, the right recruitment company, and there's an electricity in that organisation, which you would lose a little bit. So I'm just being old-fashioned a bit now.
No, I think that's. I think the blend will be somewhat the future. I think we were already working mostly that way anyway. So for me, it's definitely still been eye opening. It's interesting to see how fast you get used to it. Like, you know what I mean? You're waking up now and people are going on their runs and they're getting home. They're ready. I've got my wife personal training people on screen next door. I'm in her spare room on Zoom recording podcasts and on client meetings and all the rest of it. Poor dog's in the cage or running around on his own. And in a week, we've kind of got used to this weird reality that a week ago was just, that was never going to happen. So I'm excited to see what's going to come off the back of it. But Alex,
just to jump in there, just to say, have you seen the GIF that's going around, or the small video clip of the guy who's given the option
A and B?
A and B. Yeah. I've laughed solidly for about that. Any time I need to cheer up, I just watch that clip because I get it. I totally get it. So yes, I agree with what you're saying. But also there's a part of me which is desperately keen to escape. Yeah. So I love my wife and I love my child, but definitely I need some me time, I think. Yeah. So we'll see how I'm feeling in another couple of weeks.
Look, the weather's been beautiful as well. It's like, imagine we get like the hottest summer and we're stuck inside the whole time. Like that'll just depress people. And that is the final point, actually, I wanted to mention is mental health. Off the back of this, like we're, physically, they're in a different situation. Financially, they're going to be in a different situation. We're all putting so much pressure on each other. We're all panicking. What's the impact going to be on? Let's look at recruitment business owners. How are they going to mentally get through this, as well as in every other way?
Well, I've got to say, recruitment business owners are some of the most tough, resilient, hardy bunch. So I think they're going to be all right. I think they're going to be okay. But first and foremost, I think the key is this going to be bothering us in 12 months' time? Probably not. Hopefully not. So whenever I was extremely stressed out, I'd ask myself that question: is this still going to be bothering me in 12 months? And I think that was a good way to focus myself on the immediacy of your problems and how they're not necessarily related to the long term. And I think it's about being as supportive to each other as possible and letting everyone know that we're all going through the same stuff at this moment in time. There's one advantage to this at this moment, is that everyone's going through it at the same time. Every business that scales successfully will go through 2 or 3 minimum existential crises through the course of that business. The weird thing is we're ticking one off at the moment, which every business that grows goes through, and we're all ticking it off at the same time. So I think we just need to make sure we're as collaborative as possible, and we don't fall back on that human tendency to just start pointing the finger as soon as things start going wrong. Yeah. And look, we'll come through this. We are tough. We are resilient. There's going to be some changes in the marketplace, but get yourself fit, get yourself in shape, and you will get through the other end. And there's going to be a bounce back. I don't know when it is, but there will be a bounce back. There always is, and we're going to come out of it stronger. We're the best recruiters in the world, and we'll get through this.
Yeah, I agree. Well, look, Alex, thanks so much for taking the time, mate. I hope you get back to your books behind your head. You've got enough to read. But look, you've added loads of value on the original RAG. You've added loads of value today. I appreciate it. I do hope anyone get in touch with Alex Elliott on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, the best place? Yep. He's pretty vocal on there as well these days. So get in touch, ask your questions, and look, I can say firsthand, you've really supported me over the last week, so appreciate it, mate. Guys, I'll be back again tomorrow. That's the end of today's episode. I'll be back again tomorrow with another episode of the RAG Report, where I'll be interviewing another global leader or recruitment related person who can give their take on what's going on and how we can all survive. Until then, stay safe, and I'll see you all soon.